Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Today is Galungan. It's actually very important celebration here in Bali. It's the celebration of victory of good against bad. So ancestors, spirits come to Bali land, and our Balinese staff, they actually have to take care of that, and they have to do a lot of offerings, a lot of praying, and all the businesses, most of the businesses here in Bali, they closed. And we're not. We never closed our doors, first of all, because we don't have doors, and also because we have a global community of entrepreneurs who want to join us every day and experience this amazing environment, amazing food and drinks. And if you don't know, Genius Cafe is the child of Entrepreneur Resorts and Entrepreneurs Institute. And we're building a network of creating co-working spaces around the world in paradise locations. And in 5 years, we're going to have 50 co-working spaces in paradise. How awesome is that? This is so cool. This is not a co-working space. It's a next generation of co-working spaces where conscious travelers, purpose-driven entrepreneurs can meet, collaborate, and where all the awesome ideas can turn into amazing collaboration, partnership, or business venture. We ran more than 300 events in the last year. 300 events. Come on. How awesome is that? Every day except for Thursday, we run events here focused on social entrepreneurs. We do free events here, and Startup Grind is probably the only one that is not free. One of those events are Skillshare sessions. Also, my favorite one is Entrepreneur Social. It's a monthly event series that we run around the globe, actually, and we support local entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs here. We connect them with mentors, we connect them with business partners, we connect them with investors, and they're really happy to be a part of our community, and it's growing and growing. And a lot of the social enterprises that were here as presenters or members, they can actually grow their businesses, or they can actually get connected with our network in Sydney, in the United States, in Poland, or in Lithuania, and this is really amazing. And as well as members, we have members here who connect with each other, and one of our members, Angie, she was actually here. She's not here right now. So she is a former app developer, and right now she's a conscious entrepreneur. She has her retreats as well as app for healers, and she got connected to our member in Lithuania, who was here because she wanted to check it out, how awesome our beach club is. And they just did a retreat in Lithuania together. They got connected here during one of the Skillshare sessions, and this is really awesome. So we have almost 2,000 members in our membership network, and by the end of this year, we will have almost 3,000. This is really cool. And you can also connect with them through a super duper networking app that we are building with Genius U, and this is really awesome. And right now, I would like to invite our founder, one of the top world's social entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and also my mentor right now, because I'm going through an intense program. And Roger is our mentor, and I'm really happy to be here to work for this company, because it's really amazing and really impactful what we're doing right now. Please welcome Roger James Hamilton.
Thank you. And we have a very, very exciting session tonight all about the future of education. Hands up who has children? Hands up who's not sure? No. Okay, so this here, before we get into it, is Startup Grind, powered by Google for Entrepreneurs. This is a network all around the world where we happen to be the ones that has been appointed here in Bali to be running Startup Grind. The word Startup Grind kind of sounds like an interesting phrase in itself, this whole idea that you've got to work really, really hard, especially when you're actually here on a beach. But it actually started in Silicon Valley, and the idea that you actually really had to work hard to begin with in the grind to actually get your startup going. So it's very much focused at tech entrepreneurs. We actually have expanded it so that we aren't just thinking about tech, we're actually thinking about how to change the world. And so tonight we're going to have two awesome guests coming up. One who was on the bill, Angie Stead, all the way from New Zealand, who has already an education company, in fact two, and is about to be launching Genius School. In fact, it's just launched. And then also her partner in Genius School, Rustica, who also is from New Zealand and now has moved out here to Bali with her family. So we're going to have the two of them up here joining me. Can we please give the two of them a big round of applause? Come join us. We are going to have a conversation and then open it to questions, which means that you get a chance to participate in the future of education. Angie, I'm going to start with you. So would you like to share, first of all, how you went from the UK to New Zealand to then your first childcare centre in New Zealand? Just like a quick potted history that took you there.
Yep, okay. So in the UK, I was an area manager for a group of early childhood centres. And I was invited by a government-backed organisation to be a quality assurance assessor for early childhood centres. And through that process, saw practice that was supposed to be really top level. And I thought would be really inspiring and motivating. And actually it had quite the opposite effect. I thought it's not what it should be. We're not doing what we should be for children. And I decided then and there that I wasn't going to be part of it. When I moved to New Zealand, I wasn't going to be part of early childhood education anymore because I saw it as a problem.
What was the problem?
Practice. It was, we weren't doing the right things by our children, I believed. Yeah, in what was provided for them in those particular settings.
So, so give us an example. What was happening, or what did you see that you didn't agree with?
It was, it felt like, emotions are quite strong for me around children. So it felt like we were making money out of just penning them in and herding them. That's the feeling I got. Basically, there were lots of little things I saw that gave me that feeling.
Basically, factory farming kids.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
That's what it felt like.
So you went to New Zealand, and then how did that then lead to your first centre?
So decided on a lifestyle change, so moved countries with my family, and I worked for Kevin Happelston, who he was a business coach who used to run events, and he used to bring Roger over to New Zealand. So I met Roger in 2009. And that was life-changing for me. I was just helping to organise the event, but it opened a whole new world to me. I learned that I was a creator profile, and that you just showed me a whole different way of viewing the world, and the genius, the intelligence and contribution more than anything. So, and over that year or two, I started to gain faith back in myself, and also in education. I started to see every child I saw reminded me of my own children, and I'd meet people who reminded me of parents I knew. I'd see buildings that I thought could be great childcare centres, and I couldn't stop thinking about getting back into education. Remembering though I saw education as a problem still, though one part of me did. So I decided that with what you taught me as well about how you go up the spectrum level from red or infrared to red, then back up to yellow, I decided to become a consultant in early childhood. So I used my business background and my teaching background and experience to go into businesses and offer them, I'd look at the Education Review Office reports of childcare centres, and I'd pick out the ones that were really bad. And I knew that they were bad and they'd have low levels of occupancy. So I just cold called them, or got somebody else to do it, because there's no way I'd do it. Got somebody else to cold call them and invite and offer my service of going into their centres and giving them a report to tell them what the problem was, and very high level how to fix it. So I got quite a few centres interested in doing that and found lots of clients. In fact, I ended up with more clients than I could cope with. And I loved that. It's great.
So that led from that to then finding the partners to actually launch your own centre.
Yes.
That centre's now become 4 centres.
Yep.
Centres, you can find them online. They're called Magic Sparks.
Yep.
Was within that model. Do you want to share why you called it Magic Sparks?
Well, I actually, one of the buildings was a fire station, so I wanted bright sparks. And I do believe that education and learning is a magical experience, and I part of your network, and it's all about making magic and all of that. It's such a magical word, magic. So I thought, well, if I can't have bright sparks, then I will have magic sparks. So I was honouring the roots of the building at the same time as bringing the magic into what we were doing.
So just give everyone a bit of an idea. Can you share with everyone what was different, or what is different about those centres and the way that the kids go through the experience of education, compared to the kind of education that you were experiencing in the UK?
Yeah. So there's many theorists that support the kind of education we offer, and it's very Pickler. It's the RIE approach. So it's very, very nurturing, supporting children to be intrinsically motivated. So it's not a control environment in any way, because if you control people and children, you're responsible for their behaviour. Whereas if you can teach them to behave appropriately because it's the right thing to do, then they learn life skills. They learn that for the rest of their lives. That teaches empathy too, and you teach empathy by modelling empathy. So it's absolute respect for the child and absolute respect for the learning process, because children are naturally curious. We really don't need to teach. We just need to provide an environment that supports learning.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to come over to Rustica. I'd love you to share the journey of how you got involved in e-learning, and then from e-learning got connected to Angie, and then from that story, how you ended up here in Bali.
Back here now. So e-learning. So I used to be a contractor, so I was a learning designer. So I spent a lot of time in corporate New Zealand and basically creating e-learning, which meant sitting behind a computer all day, typing out creative learning. So being a supporter profile.
And this is for like companies
for
and
corporates, yeah. So it's like a self-employed contractor basically. And I knew a supporter had really good networks. I could never find out how to monetize it. I had tried so many things that had just failed and failed and failed. And I just got tired of recruiters ringing me up saying, hey, Rustica, are you available? No, I'm not available. Who do you know? I'd tell them. They'd go off and make the money. And I thought, well, it can't be that hard. Anyway, so I ended up partnering with an IT recruitment company, because I thought they'd have customers who were corporate, IT. I could go and do the IT e-learning. Turned out he didn't want to play and never chucked anything over the fence. And so it ended up, then he got sick actually and sold his business. And I went, oh, excellent. So now I haven't got a business partner. So so I got into e-learning that way and came here for Walter Dynamics Masters 2 years ago. So it's exactly 2 years now. And interestingly, the volcano was going off 2 years ago, as it is now. And I said to Angie...
That was the one on Lombok when that was going off. So it stopped, it basically closed the airport here.
Yeah, that's right. And that was, and because it was an unannounced event, insurance did pay for it. So we had an insurance paid holiday here. But I'd known Angie and of Angie for a very long time in New Zealand, but we just had never connected. And it was at the, we had a ceremony on the last day, and I said, I'd really love to bring Green School to New Zealand, because my daughter had been there for 2 semesters. So when she was 5, she was there for 4 months. And then when she was 7, because I just couldn't find a way to not be here and not be making money. So it took me 10 years to work that out. Because I just knew, walked into the Green School when she was 1, so 10 years ago, and I just knew with walking in there that she had to go there. I can't even explain it, and I was just listening to that intuition. And I just, from then on, I was going to take it back to New Zealand. And anyone who knows me was like, I was always going to take Green School to New Zealand. And I just mentioned that to Angie on the last night, and she said, oh my God, me too. So then the volcano went off, and we spent a week at commune, and within half a day we'd already connected with the right people. And then we thought we were going to be a location-based business, but in actual fact, it's turned out we're not going to be a location-based business doing it ourselves, but our partners will create location-based schools all around the world. So we've been able to create an opportunity where we need to educate, but we don't actually need to go around and set up all these schools, because obviously that takes a lot of time and money as well. So we can set up a global business from day one, or opportunity from day one. So do you want to explain the land, because you were involved in the land that wasn't to be?
Yeah, it was all my fault. It was. So I found this amazing piece of land for was going to be Green School, and it was right out in the bush on the Kapiti coast in New Zealand, miles away from anywhere. And I thought it was perfect for that. We had our own natural spring, and it was amazing. Um, but the problem was it was miles away from anywhere. And resource consent, it had a roadway that I thought was quite adequate for 2 cars. It would have been fine. But resource consent said it had to be 2 buses being able to turn on the road and pass each other. So that would have been okay as well if it was a short road, but it was miles away from anywhere, and it just wouldn't have been feasible to build the roadway. So, but that was great. The universe conspired in our favour, because we were planning, because you can't have a bamboo school in New Zealand because the weather doesn't support that. So we were looking at all these fantastic models for eco buildings and having pods for learning. So it would feel like it was outside and not in a square building, but it kind of still was classrooms. So, and we thought that was really forward thinking back then, 2 years ago. And we thought we were the future of education, because we had round classrooms in pods and not square classrooms, which is really amusing now, because what we're doing now, we don't even need classrooms or schools for.
Right. So the Green School's here in Bali. Hands up who has heard of the Green School or knows of the Green School? Okay, so maybe half of you. It's kind of like on its way up towards Ubud. And I got involved with Green School quite early on. My kids all went there. And so, you know, our network got to know about them as well. When John and Cynthia Hardy, who set up the Green School, when they set that up, I set up the board for them. And I was the board chairman for, I think, 3 years, and formed, basically that whole structure for them to be able to grow. So knew all the people that were actually working on it. And some of the instructional designers, the ones who actually designed the curriculum, were actually from New Zealand, right? And then also from Australia. So you got connected to all of them, which was awesome. Yeah. And then that then evolved from the idea of doing Green School as a school in New Zealand to the Junior School, now doing that globally. Yep. So let's talk now about, well, first of all, the early success of the Junior School, the first 15 educators and the number of people that actually applied to already join it. And then a bit of a vision of what it's going to be and what the next steps in the plan is. And then we're going to go from that to a bit of a Q&A. So everyone interested in the coming journey will have a chance to be able to ask questions about it. So do you want to kind of give a bit of a summary, Angie?
Yep. Okay. So we've got a junior educator certification happening over the next week or 2 here in Bali. And we promoted that through a competition. So the competition was to win a place at the Juniors Educator certification course. And apparently we were inundated with applications. There were so many, 1,000 of them. So and we couldn't get through the whole lot in connecting with them. But we've got that course full anyway, and we're really looking forward to that, which is happening soon. So this certification is the foundation level for becoming a Genius Educator. And Genius Educators, we want to reach as many people as we can, because we believe that every single child deserves access to this curriculum. So what we're looking at is having a group of founding educators that will help us co-create content and products for taking into schools. So what we're thinking of at the moment is having like a super camp model, whereby with a different twist, the Genius curriculum, and that would be week-long camps for parents and children, and we'd run a program for the parents at the same time as the children, so that parents understood why we were teaching the children what we were teaching them, so we'd all learn together. And the idea being that we'll have a framework and a structure for a camp, but then people can take that and they can design their own camps based on that particular niche, like maybe have a music camp, or whatever it might be, so that it's expansive and inclusive at the same time, so they can take it to any community and really follow the child's interests. And so parents learn then also how to, if a child is interested in music, for example, then parents will learn how to support their child in that learning, and to support them to follow their passion and why that's really important.
So Genius School will work at the level where it can be individual tutoring for individual kids, through to weekend camps, through to like larger week camps, through to actual schools themselves, like the whole pathway. Rustica, do you want to share a bit about what the actual principles of the school are? If anyone here has a child, and again, like the age ranges it's going to be in, what they can expect differently through the model compared to a traditional school.
Absolutely. And I was at a client, so I'm helping put their financial literacy online for 5 to 17-year-olds. And the woman sitting across the table from me said, because I said to her, I actually believe that children should use their passions and talents to make a difference. It was just a very simple belief, and it's certainly a belief of Genius School philosophy. 6-year-old, she loves fashion design. She is never going to make any money out of fashion design. She is not going to be a fashion designer. She is going to university. Well, so I didn't say anything, but I think energetically she sort of got what I thought about that.
Yeah.
So just that, that's why we've got to have the parents involved, because if we don't involve the parents, we could teach a 6-year-old, you could totally be a fashion designer. Why wouldn't you believe that? Why wouldn't we give them the ability to understand their passions and talents? And at 6, I mean, for goodness sake. So anyway, so we've got to teach the parents as well. So that's really, it's just so critical, and particularly about who they are is okay, exactly where they are. You mentioned Sean, one of the founding curriculum managers from Green School. He's got his own small school in Ubud now, and he said, yeah, my daughter, she's 10, a couple of months ago, she's right into this I don't even know what it was, I don't know, fidget spinners or whatever. She'd spend hours and hours and hours, and he goes, that's okay, because as a parent you might not believe that's okay. He said, but what it taught her to do was to focus on something she loved. And I said, oh, what, be in flow? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So that's what it's about, and you can probably add to that as well, because but for me that's the essence of it. So do you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I was saying before, children are innately curious. So too are we. In fact, we're probably nowhere near as curious as children, because most of us have had that dulled down because we've not been allowed to follow our own curiosity. So, and that's a perfect example. The scientific and mathematical concepts in what she was doing there. And she was curious about that. So yeah, it might be a fidget spinner to us, but there's so much learning in that experience. So, and it's so important. Children, it's very hard. I could never have somebody tell me, right, Angie, you're going to spend the next 6 months learning to program a computer. I actually did that, and I chose that myself. But that was, but to be told to sit and do something and learn something you're not interested in really turns you off learning, and people do then believe that they don't like learning or that they're not able to learn. Whereas if we understand a child's natural curiosity, and that'll change. We don't need to worry about the fashion design and the fidget spinner, because we're forever changing and growing, and so they'll be curious about that right now, but they might not want to be a fidget spinner for life or a fashion designer for life. We have to go through a process, and it has to be led by the child in order for learning to happen at a speed that children need to learn right now, because everything's changing so fast. We don't have time to learn everything about every topic. We just have to learn how to be a learner so that we can learn for the future. And children are born learners, so let's trust them to learn and follow their own learning.
And lead their own learning.
Lead their own learning, and then, yeah.
So everything we're talking about here is about the education revolution. I mean, there's no disagreement with the fact that the current system is broken, and that there are more students going not just through high school, but going through university and then not being able to get jobs off the back of it than ever before. And there are more jobs today that our students are getting prepared for, which actually aren't going to be around by the time they actually graduate as well. So we are in a crisis in education, and there have been some great people like Ken Robinson and others who have actually pointed out the problem without actually saying, now I'm going to be showing you the solution. And there are some solutions like Green School and others that haven't yet scaled globally. And here we have Genius School, which is in the process now of scaling globally with, again, over 1,000 people already wanting to be educators within it as well. So there may be a question you have specifically for Rustica and Angie on their journey. It could be about this whole new future. It could be that you actually have a child at the moment that you're thinking, all right, well, what would be different, or how would it work? Or you might have your own thoughts and ideas, and you want to kind of like quiz a bit more as to what this new model is all about, because we've only just touched the surface of what it is and the way it's going to grow. But we are going to be looking at tens of thousands of students who are going to be going through this in the coming years. So take a moment before we go further and just think, well, if I had a question to ask tonight about the future of education, what would my question be? Take a moment and then turn to someone next to you and come up with your best question. What would it be? Have a conversation. we're going to open this up for questions now. So who's going to be the brave person who's going to ask the first question? All right, we've got a hand up right from the very front here. We've got quite a few hands up, so we'll just have Ricky pass out the microphone.
Thank you very much, bless you. Rustica and Angie, could you please just explain how does it work? Because I have two daughters and they're 4 years old and 2 years old. And at what age do they really start, for example, learning in junior school? And what is the model? So is it something additional to the school education? So it's something extracurricular, or is it going to completely kind of how to say, substitute, so just something like home education or something? So how does it work? I'm very interested.
Good. So interestingly, in time, it's all of that. So it's certainly extracurricular right now, but because we're the first stage is the camps and the Genius Educator training, but ultimately over the next couple of years, it will be homeschooling. We'll have micro degrees and curriculum content on Genius U. So micro degrees will be supporting parents in understanding the best way to teach their child, because the most important thing as a parent is to enjoy being a parent. And the sad thing is most of us are so stressed during that period because we want to get it right and we don't know whether we're doing the right thing, that it takes the joy out of that whole relationship between the parent and child sometimes, or certainly for most of us for short periods. So it would be great if everybody knew that actually we can trust the children to learn, and knew that tantrums and behavioural challenges are a normal part of development, and actually that's the only thing we should be concerned about teaching at that age. So for children, talking about your 2 to 4 year old children, the most important thing for them to learn is how to manage their own behaviours and emotions. So sadly, a lot of the way we were taught to parent actually has us thrown as many tantrums as the children, because we try and control and we get angry and, all these ways of the stress that brings, when actually we should just step back, relax, and support the child through the process.
So when you went through and shared like the whole concept of the schools in South Africa, do you want to share just how many people already wanted to actually start a physical school at that point already?
There were 5 or 6 over that couple of weeks period. So Thailand, Poland, England, New Zealand, Australia, 6.
So already from the very beginning, there's people that want to set up the schools. Most new school systems fail because the great ideas behind them are not supported by the right model that gets them to critical mass to begin with. And so there's really almost like 3 phases of the way I would look at it. Is that the first phase is one in which, whether it's a parent like yourself actually getting certified as an educator for your own kids, or whether it is professionals who are teachers already, or people who are already helping kids that actually are getting certified, they then have the ability already to use a lot of the assessment tools like your passion test and the purpose test for the kids to actually learn more about themselves, and then and how, as Angie says, you can then become a better nurturer of that child's inner genius to begin with. And then that allows us to have some extracurricular programs like the camps and the weekend camps that we can do in partnership with schools. The second phase from that is really the homeschooling, because then at that point you don't have to have all the cost of a school, and then you could say, right, I want my child to go through the homeschooling, and I'm going to choose to hire an educator who's going to guide them through it, and they're going to use all these tools and get connected to other kids as well. And then the third phase after that is you get a critical mass of people in Thailand or in Japan or in Singapore who then go, okay, now we're going to set up the school, and then the school can start. And so it's really led as a revolution by the parents and the kids that then end up with the schools that's becoming full the moment we launch the schools.
And the great thing about that is that parents have absolute choice about when, where and how their children are educated. So you can follow the Genius School curriculum, and that can be through extracurricular activities, it can be through the homeschooling model, or it can be through a location-based school. And for the homeschooling model, we see that we will be building a community of educators who will be also co-schooling potentially. so that you can choose a homeschooling educator who is particularly good at music, or one that's particularly good at science. So you can choose an educator that has the strengths that match your child's strengths. So there's fantastic opportunity for that too.
Awesome. All right. So we come over.
Can I just ask another very small question? Does it also include special needs children as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with special needs children, or children with additional needs, and I think we all have our own additional needs in some way. I think it's more about then educators working with the professionals as well, depending on the additional needs of that child. But you'll find that a lot of children that are labelled as having additional needs under the current model will have no particular additional needs under our model. That would just be their particular genius. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, Angie and Rustica. Before I ask my question, I just want to say one thing, which is that I believe so passionately in what you're doing, because from my own personal experience, I was the child who showed aptitude all the way through their young childhood in a particular area. For me, it was interior decorating and interior design. And I was discouraged from doing that. And it's 30 years later, and I'm finally getting emotional. I'm finally doing it.
Oh, good on you.
Well
Yeah.
done.
Lifelong
That's awesome.
learners. Yeah.
So for you to be able to get people to believe in themselves and do that from a really young age is just so powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
My question is, how do I refer people to you now? What stage are you at? Like, how do we actually get people on board with you right now?
So we are running the Genius Educator certification. That's happening next week here in Bali. We will also have certification programs online through Genius U, and we'll be going to Thailand and Japan also next year running the same. So we are really keen to build our community. So I think if we can, we might be able to send something out to you and just connect that way.
Yeah, with me.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
So this means this. I mean,
Facebook,
in this
yeah.
next 12 months, there's already going to be a full schedule of people getting certified, camps happening. What I'm really excited about with the camps is that a lot of the camps, like we actually set up with Green School in partnership with Supercamp in America, the Green Supercamp, and it's like a 10-day program for teens and for younger kids, but it's just the kids, and then the kids have to then kind of go back to the parents, and sometimes that's where the challenge really is, right? So the idea of actually having Genius camps with the entire family, right? So while the kids are actually learning more about themselves and becoming self-aware and getting passionate about their lives and where they're going, the parents are also learning how to be better parents and how to actually get connected more with the kids, and so that becomes a really powerful thing. I'm really looking forward to having that out in South Africa and Tau, because then everyone goes on the safari camp together, and it's going to be such an awesome experience of what happens in a very concentrated period of time with Genius School. So again, anyone who's on the list will hear about those dates when they come up next year.
Yeah.
And I think just to add as well to that, the people who are showing up already and who are coming to the First Educator event next Thursday and Friday, we've had two amazing opportunities. So working with Phil, who's very into music, and we talked about the idea of going to India and working with the slum children and saying, hey, imagine if we get 5,000 off the streets, do this amazing concert, and for every 20 children that showed up, give a free educator course away for the people in India to educate the kids. Talking to Alison about working with the ability to actually track resilience and track self-awareness pre and post, to actually measure the impact we're having. So the people that are showing up in our community now, and it's Sarah who's actually writing the structure for the framework for the camps. These opportunities, she will be the global leader for that. So people who are showing up and saying, hey, I've got these skills now, there's just this massive opportunity for people. So it's really exciting for everybody. Yeah.
The model with micro degrees and the micro degree builders happening on GeniusU is the ones that go to the top are the ones that get voted up. So let's imagine that someone puts on a micro degree to learn how to really ace your maths, like when it comes to having accelerated learning as opposed to having to go and learn maths the kind of like really boring way. And let's imagine it was put up by like a 14-year-old who actually does it, and that becomes one of the leading ones, right? You actually can have kids learning, teaching their own things and actually being the educator along. So it's not just who gets like trained to be the teacher who then everyone has to listen to. It's who actually everyone loves listening to at whatever age. And so it really is this whole collaborative feel which we already experience online, but it's bringing all of those tools of what it is to create social media into social learning, so that we have a whole different model, which is not basically everyone sitting listening to the person at the front of the class. It's everyone learning collectively together in really powerful ways. By the way, this is something inspired in some part by Elon Musk and what he's created with Ad Astra. So Ad Astra means to the stars, and it's basically the school he's created for his own kids. But he has no interest in scaling it because he's busy doing other things. So it's pretty much just SpaceX, like, employees that are in there. But everything they do is about this project learning. So he says, look, I don't want my kid to have to learn how to use a screwdriver. I want my kid to have a project on how to build a rocket and fly it in the air. And in that process, he needs to learn how to use a screwdriver, but it's for a purpose as opposed to just learning it without knowing how he's ever going to use it. So I think that purpose-based, project-based learning linked to child-centered education is really the power behind this as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where children don't learn all the dispositions for learning through being told what to learn, because they won't push past the challenges they face. That they won't overcome difficulty. So it's really important, if they lead their own learning, they're going to push themselves further, and they're going to persist through difficulty and accept more challenges, which is going to grow their learning. Yeah.
Another question? Yeah. Jonathan had a question. Slavik's got the mic.
Thank you, Angie and Rustica, for sharing your stories. It's a really inspiring one, and great to hear that you are involved into this avant-garde movement of education. One of the things which popped in my head is that a lot is being said that the future of education, like, we need to make ourselves insulated to all this wind of changes which are coming, and the whole education should be aligned with 4 C's, like collaboration, communication, creative thinking, and so forth. Do you think that your solution, that your approach is the answer to this idea of?
Absolutely, because if it's a project-based approach to learning, children have to collaborate in order to complete a project. If it was building a shed, for example, they might all collaborate in different ways, and that for somebody who's more introverted, that might look like, well, I'll go off on my own and I'll draw the design and I'll measure up the concept. But they still have to come back and present that to the rest of the group, and still have to discuss it and have it critiqued. And that's the thing as well. Normal schooling, or most schooling, does not really offer young children the opportunity to reflect and to critique each other's learning. And so what happens is we grow up actually thinking that if somebody criticises what we do, it hurts our very soul, and we can't accept it. Whereas if that's a part of everyday learning, then, because that's the best self-reflection, and, metacognition is a really important part of the learning process, and this project-based approach offers that. Yeah, because, like I say, if you're talking about the collaboration, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, it does.
Yeah. And the emotional side of it as well, because learning is an emotional experience. So children have to cope with the challenges of somebody not liking what they've produced, or, the conflict of I want to make it a rectangle and someone else wants to make it a triangle. So, overcoming conflict situations, etc., etc. Yeah.
So another question is that, because I assume that you are not doing this to be involved into educating just a couple hundreds of kids. You want to scale it up.
Yeah.
So what is your idea what is your concept for making this like a global movement?
Because, we've already got people from all over the world interested in Genius School. We have people wanting to translate, etc. So maybe we might have the framework translated and taught. But because it's co-created, and because it's communities of learning putting on all the tools, that's going to happen naturally anyway. And because of the whole model, it's not location based. We've got communities of schooling, homeschoolers, or content that can be downloaded or watched over the internet, or, like I say, just taken to another country and translated. So there's so many different ways that this can go global. And people are more global now than ever. So, you know, your child can have the consistency of a certain style and approach to education and travel the world. And that's really important as well, because changing traditional schools can be quite challenging for children. But at least if they're familiar with the learning style, then it supports their
Can I
learning
share a bit
too.
about the model as well? Because I think for me, the model is what excites me the most. The biggest challenge is the model of having to have a physical school, or the model of having, like, is it a private company, is it a charity, all of that have pros and cons. All these things are a big challenge. Some of you might remember there was a story about when Snapchat really got big, and it turned out that the first investor in Snapchat, he made all this money, and the reason he even found out about it was because his daughter was at a school where that school had actually created a little fund to fund different things, and basically they went and gave the school a whole bunch of money, where the school now is super wealthy based on what happened in the school that then led to the success of Snapchat, right? So most of education is not measured on the future success of the students. Most education is measured on, did we get them to 12th grade, right? And as long as they got to 12th grade, who cares if they get a job or not? That's not our job, right? We've done our job, which is why so many kids then leave and they don't get a job. So what's really powerful about this model is it's not a for-profit or it's not a non-profit, it's a for-purpose, where it's a publicly owned company and everyone who is part of the company gets a share. I'll have a share, Angie will have a share, Rustica will have a share, you can have a share, one vote, one share, that's it. And then every child that comes in gets one share as well. So everyone gets a vote on everything that then happens, and it's true democratic education that comes out of it. And then how does it make money? All the money that actually gets generated, whether it's the companies who are sponsoring to have micro degrees to help them to get the actual skills they need from students as they get older, whether it's sponsorships that are happening, or even like, you know, parents themselves paying for courses and things like that, all that money gets recycled back in to grow everything that happens in there. And then also at the same time, a percentage goes towards a fund, where that fund will support kids after they leave. If you want to go start a business, if you want to basically start a new project, there's money for those things to then happen. And if there's any profits from those things in the future, that gets distributed across everybody who has a share. And so the power of that is that the reward goes and the incentive goes to actually ensuring the future success of the kids when they leave. Even when you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you're still part of Genius School, and you're still contributing to it through your success and through the ways that you're a part of it too, which is a whole different model, because it means you never leave the school. You know, you're in it for life. And I think there's a real power in that, because it's such a different model from any that are out there. That would have been impossible 15 years ago. But today, with the internet and with the structure that we can create, is so simple to be able to do that kind of a model. Just no one's yet done it. So that entrepreneurial thinking that's gone into the Genius School, I think, is one of the real powers behind it. So that everyone who is now part of this, or is going to be a part of it, realizes that the actual structure itself is also a 21st century structure. Was that pretty? Yeah,
Awesome.
accurate? All right. Let's take another. Jonathan.
Hi guys, thanks. I really like what you're doing, because I have 4 kids. You've met 3 of them so far. I consider every child a genius unless we get in their way to start with. We've been in different countries, so we've come across a couple of ideas, like everything from a kid at 4 only has 8 minutes attention span, and when they get older it gets longer. And building their character is just as much, you know, the sharer, carer or risk taker is just as important as anything else. And I think Finland last year was the first time to come up with the idea. We actually lived in Finland, that's where some of these things come from. No subjects anymore, but projects, and actually integrate the subjects into the projects. One of the things that was really good for me was their character was important, as long as the environment was there. So just kind of, probably the model you talk about is a lifelong, which then we all have invested interest. But what's the idea of the kid, or what are the principles in the education, or the concept of a classroom, maybe a little bit more detailed? I'm just curious, really. Thank you.
So, 3 times there, so you could talk about that.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. And just on the moving around, we have plans for everywhere there's a resort. So everywhere there's a Genius resort, we will actually have educators. So us as a community can actually buzz around and go visit, and actually have our educators in those same locations, and the children's education then doesn't get interrupted because they know exactly where they were in that country. They just carry on in that country. So in terms of the structure, we are looking at the 3-frame day. So the 3-frame day essentially at the beginning of the day will allow a child to be affirmed for who they are 100%. So it's just getting their attention and getting centred that we're all great. Middle part of the day is the content, so the intellectual content. And at the end of the day is really about that experiential problem. And not that that just sits in that part of the day, but and as they get older, they will get into the more sort of the entrepreneurial, starting their own businesses, etc. So I don't know if that answers your question in terms of character, because we're not specifically doing.
Well, we kind of are with the other aspects of it as well. So self-awareness is what builds character. So the most important thing is really understanding our emotions, understanding how we think, and understanding how we learn. So we have products that we are tweaking. So with the wealth dynamics test and with our Genius Educator certification, which parents can come to as well, then parents will learn that actually, every profile has a different type of way of learning, a different natural way of learning. So we all learn in all the different ways they are, and we learn in every way that we perceive the world. But there's still going to be dominant ways that a creator learns from a trader, etc. So that's how we, and of course all our educators, all the teachers, if you like, in schools are learning this too, as well as a curriculum that builds character through the project-based approach, helping children to develop learning dispositions. So they're lifelong and they're character building too. And on top of that, there's also for the homeschooling and for the schools, the whole content and subject of emotional intelligence, which is woven through the whole curriculum anyway, and part of the self-awareness.
Thank you very much.
There's a really nice model that some of you know about, the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is the interlinking of 4 different petals to a flower, which is all about what the world needs, which is your purpose, what you love, which is your passions, what you do best, which is your talents, and how you make money, which is the model, right? And how those link together. You can actually start from a very young age to actually start becoming self-aware in all these areas, and even the concept ikigai, which means your purpose in life, your reason for being, is something that the moment you have that as a center of your education, that's the real meaningful side. What I really love about the 3-frame day is even the content base, which is the middle part, is still self-directed learning. It's not like I have to go through this class, do an exam, realize that I've got to see. It's none of that. It's basically, okay, I did one module and I learned this from it, and here critically is how I could improve what I'm doing, and now I'm going to go on to the next one. So you could have someone at 7, 8 years old who's at a totally different place in their maths ability compared to someone else, but they're at exactly where they need to be, and they're not feeling like they're failing anything. And then the other one might be at a whole different ability with their English, right? So those kind of critical thinking skills and the way that we're working is something that you're taking at your pace. So the one thing you hold on to is your own confidence and your self-awareness and self-confidence as well. Yeah, Nick.
Hi, congrats getting to this stage. It looks fantastic what you guys are doing. My daughter, it's hard to believe, but is in her final year of a primary BEd course. She's, I'm keen, she's keen to do something a little bit different. What would her earning potential be to come in as a newly qualified teacher? The Bank of Dad has been very generous, but she's still got things she needs to pay for. What's the opportunity for someone coming into the process as to earn?
Under Genius School or under Genius School?
Yeah, under Genius School.
So we actually take we support our Genius educators, the certified educators, to then monetize what they do. So it is a business model, and it depends which model she takes, whether she goes down the homeschooling model, or whether she runs camps, or whether she does weekend camps or takes content into school. So that's not a quick answer for you right now, but it's something we can discuss and I can go through with you.
There is a genuine salary comparable to other
It's not a salary, it would be her own business, and it would be comparable, yeah, definitely, probably better. Yeah, well, definitely better. Yeah.
We've got time for one final question. Anyone would like to ask a final question? No final questions? Okay, then I'm going to ask...
Over there.
No, we do? All right. Yeah, Roy.
Hey girls, hey Angie,
Hi.
Rustica. Being in the health world, I love the principles of the way that you structure learning. I think I had a chat with you, Rustica, about this. And I'd love to go educate educators in the health world. So how would I apply what you guys are doing at a 6-year-old level, which is essentially what we want to do for adults anyway, right? To this paradigm.
Okay, so what you could do there is become a certified genius educator and have a niche specific camp. So a genius camp for children, and you can then co-create and design content that would fit into our framework, and then you can go do that or build a community of people to do that.
Okay, so through that's where I'd learn the framework
Yeah.
and what you guys do, and then I could apply that to my world.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool.
I would go further than that. I think that one of the most fundamental things that kids don't learn in the traditional schooling system is health. I mean, you just don't, right? You don't have any idea about nutrition or any of those other areas. And they kind of plug it into somewhere on the phys ed side, or try and plug it in. Like, it just, there's no subject on it, right? So I think one of the really powerful, things again about the actual subject courses within Genius School is you have a whole section which is about self-mastery, which is about self-awareness. It is about leadership skills, like how do you communicate, how can you even set up your own business, how do you, living, how do you actually be healthy? How do you actually create a healthy relationship? These are things we don't learn through the traditional learning. So that whole, self-mastery separate from skills mastery is a really powerful area where there's no question the full curriculum of health, like absolutely bringing health dynamics into Genius School, bringing some of your tools into self-care into Genius School becomes so critical because these are the things we have to go out and learn about after we graduate. When in fact they're the things that when a kid looks at those things, they make total sense from day one. How do we look after the earth? How do we look after ourselves? These are all Genius School curriculum.
And that's probably the biggest challenge, is for me to simplify it in a way that a child could understand it. So it's almost the first step for me would be to get it to a point where a child could understand it, then I can make it more complex.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got a whole community of educators that can support you with that.
Awesome. I'll chat later. Thanks.
Excuse me, Roger, we have one more question from our guest who came here for dinner and ended up at Startup Grind with you, Rustica, Roger, and Angie. So one more question.
Guys, I came here especially to see this innovation. I tell you what, it's absolutely awesome what you guys have done, really. And I know obviously there's been a lot of input with what Roger's done with the Green School, which is also absolutely awesome. Seeing that this can be replicated and we can all plug in, fantastic. One of the reasons why I came here tonight. My question, you guys have obviously done something brilliant to this stage. It shines compared with what's currently out there. With other guys who are doing stuff, I just came back from India. I met an awesome chap. And I just thought, where's your picture with continuously evolving and growing in this field?
We are lifelong learners ourselves. So this is the start of the journey. It will continuously evolve and grow because not because of us, but because of us as well, but because our community will be co-creating and building the content, and children will be leading their own learning and responsible for everything that happens in the school and around. So we're responding to them, not the other way around. So it can't help but evolve and grow because it all starts from the child. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
What would you add, Rustica? No? Okay. Well then, anything final sharing you'd like to share, Rustica, with everyone?
Yeah, I just think that for those of you that are interested, we'll stick around for a little bit and just come and have a talk because, as this gentleman was saying, the opportunity is massive and we can all co-create something amazing together. And we're very interested in doing that with people in this community.
And I second that, yeah. Absolutely.
Can we please give Rustica and Andrew a big round of applause for this evening? Thank you, guys. That was awesome. Very cool. So now is the part where you get to connect either with Angie or Rustica if you'd like to have a chat with them or with each other. So for those of you going back to Vision Villas, we've got half an hour before the first buses go back and then every half hour after that. So do make the most of this evening. Enjoy it. Get to meet some new people. Get inspired. about the fact that we are living into a whole new future with a whole new generation of awesome kids who are going to be growing up through this new system. Thanks very much, guys, and give yourself a round of applause for being here. Thank you. All right. Cheers. Thanks, Dee.